Welcome back, beautiful people, to Hearts Wine from Heart's Distractions, the podcast where we dive deep into the messiness, the beauty, and the emotional hangovers of love, sex, and everything in between. I'm your host, Alicia Minor Gaines, and today, y'all, we're going there. Yes, there. So, if you've got the kids in the car, now might be a good time to switch over to Disney. If not, pour yourself a glass of wine or a mixed cocktail or some tea if you like. If this topic hits too close to home for you, let's settle in for a conversation about something that's lighting up bedrooms or blowing them up. Yes, today's episode, kinky sex saves or destroys relationships. Now that's a question, y'all. Let's be real for a second though. Some of y'all are out here talking about spicing things up. Meanwhile, you haven't looked your partner in the eye during sex in the past 6 months. Others are getting tied up on Friday nights and wondering, is this intimacy or just something I saw on 50 Shades of Grey? Well, whether you're curious about kink, deep in the BDSM world, yes, I will explain that later, low-key interested in polyamory but scared to say it, or just bought a sex swing off of Amazon after a breakup, this episode is for you. Because let me tell you, kinky sex is not just about whips, chains, and furry handcuffs, people. It's about vulnerability, communication, and sometimes avoiding accountability through excitement. So, we're going to break down this episode starting with what kinky sex really is and what it's not, how it impacts couples emotionally, sexually, and spiritually, when it becomes a distraction, and how to tell if it's saving your relationship or silently destroying it. And yes, this episode is for everybody. Black love, queer love, married love, newly dating love, healing from divorce type of love. We don't shame here. We do truth. So let's get into it. Let's get back to the heart, shall we? Okay. Let's start with the basics. Let's unpack the word that makes some people clutch their pearls and others lean all the way in. Yep, I'm talking about kink, y'all. Now, if you Google it, which I did, of course, for research purposes only. Don't judge me, y'all. Don't judge me. You'll find kink defined as sexual practices that deviate from what's considered traditional or normative. And I'm like, who decides what's normal? Y'all know that was the therapist in me, right? Because let's be honest, some of y'all out here think missionary position with the lights off is wild. And others are out here in latex, suspended from the ceiling, sipping almond milk. I'm gonna let that one sit there. Kinky sex can include things like BDSM. For those of y'all who don't know what that means, it's bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. Fetishism. What is that? Specific fixations, such as, having a foot fetish, latex fetish, leather fetish, you name it. Role playing. Yes, role playing fits in this, y'all. Being in the role of a teacher, student, boss, secretary, alien versus human, if that's your thing. Yeah, I said it. There's some of y'all out here doing that. No judgment though. Swinging. For my swingers out there who know what this means, I'm going to tell everybody else. That means exchanging partners or engaging in group sex. I know, some of y'all clenching pearls over there. Polyamory. This is intimate relationships with more than one partner with everyone's consent. I hope some of you heard the last part. Consent. Everyone's consent. Sex toys. Yep, we're adding that in here too, y'all. From vibrators to cages to remote control underwear. If it's in a drawer and it buzzes, trust me, we're covering it. And lastly, and we don't want to forget, aftercare. Because what happens after play is just as important, right? But here's the thing. Kink isn't always about sex. It's about power, trust, and surrender. Let me hit you with some marriage and family therapy truth, can I? Kink is not necessarily a sign of pathology. In fact, couples who engage in consensual kink often report higher levels of communication, trust, and satisfaction, reported by the Journal of Sexual Medicine. I'm going to leave that one right there for y'all while I tell y'all a quick story. So, I want to call this couple Tony and Marcus, who've been married for 12 years. They came to me for couples therapy after Tony found a secret rope kit, in their closet. Now, I already know what y'all are thinking. Was it that thick navy blue rope with the metal clip or the red one? Well, it was the blue one, y'all. Tony was offended. She said, "I'm your wife, not a prisoner. What were you planning to do with this? And with who?" Well, y'all, Marcus, bless his awkward soul, turned redder than a ripe tomato and ended up saying, "I was going to bring it up. I didn't want to freak you out. I thought maybe it could help us reconnect." It turns out they hadn't had sex in months. Not because they didn't love each other, but because life had worn them out. Kids, work, COVID. Because COVID can bring you down too, because when you're sick, you ain't trying to be in the mood. I'm just saying. And his mother even moved in, y'all. Yes. That was a buzz killer for them. And on top of that, her father passed away. So they were passing each other like roommates. So Marcus started watching kink content. He wasn't cheating. He was curious. Not about dominating her, but about reconnecting through playfulness and power. When they finally had the conversation, tears, yelling, a lot of awkwardness, they realized something powerful. They weren't fighting about rope. They were fighting about permission to want more. And after some hard conversations, and yes, a session or two with yours truly, they set some rules, some boundaries, and tried it. She loved it, and he cried after. And they said it was the first time they had seen each other in years. That's the power of honesty, y'all. Whether it's with a rope or rose. Yep, I said it. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to start a rope collection or download FetLife. I'm saying let's stop pretending like sexual curiosity equals brokenness. Because sometimes the kink isn't in the whip. It's in the desire to feel again. And sometimes that kink is a cry for closeness, a scream in the dark of disconnection. Here's a quote from the book Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. "There is no one right way to have sex. The only rules are consent, communication, and authenticity." Did y'all just hear that? Authenticity. So let's take a breath, unclench, and ask ourselves, are we using kink to explore intimacy or to avoid it? All right. Now let's slow it down and really get into the layers, shall we? Because saying kinky sex is like saying dessert. That could mean chocolate cake, fried Oreos, or a tequila shot with whipped cream. Don't ask me how I know. Mind your business. So, before we go deeper into whether kink saves or destroys relationships, let's break it all the way down. We're going to sip our wine and unpack the juicy, taboo, and often misunderstood categories that fall under the kinky sex umbrella. Let's start with the one that gets everybody either excited or terrified. Okay. I must say, woo child, if you ever read 50 Shades of Grey and thought, wait, he's doing what? With a necktie? Then you've already had a taste of the pop culture version of BDSM. But real BDSM is deeper. It's not just rough sex. It's structured power of dynamics with mutual consent and emotional safety. Let's break down the alphabet soup of this, shall we? B stands for bondage, which means physically restraining someone, usually for erotic stimulation. It could be ropes, handcuffs, silk scarves, or the Target belt you haven't worn in 5 years. I'm just saying. D stands for discipline and dominance and submission. Well, mostly dominance, right? We ain't get to the S part yet. But discipline, let's start with that one, which is agreed upon rules and punishments in a power exchange relationship. Yes, this can be sexy, but no, this is not abuse. Let's be clear. Dominance and submission is a dynamic where one partner consensually gives control to the other. It could be sexual or even emotional. Some couples live a 24/7 dynamic, others just do it for weekend fun. Sadism is gaining pleasure from inflicting pain, but with consent. Because if you use a safe word, because most couples, they do this, they have a safe word. And if that safe word is called, that means that consent is no longer given. That means you got to stop. Masochism is enjoying receiving pain, again, with consent and safety. But listen, I can't stress this enough. This is not about being abusive, controlling, or emotionally manipulative. A healthy BDSM dynamic has more communication and check-ins than most vanilla relationships do. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine found that people who engaged in BDSM practices report lower levels of psychological distress, more secure attachment styles, and higher well-being than those who don't. Yes, the folks getting spanked are often more emotionally grounded than the folks ghosting after 2 dates. I said it. We're going to let that sink in. Now, let's slide into the world of fetishes, okay? And listen, if the word makes you nervous, don't worry. You probably have one and don't even know it yet. A fetish is when someone's sexual arousal is linked to a specific object, body part, material, or scenario. And no, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It just means your wiring as a little twist, and that's okay. Some common fetishes include feet, the whole toes, soles, arches, fresh pedicure. People pay more money for that. You might be leaving cash on the table. And let that sink in. Latex or leather. The smell, the shine, the feeling. Some people are deeply turned on by just these materials. Uniforms? Yes. Nurses, police officers, firefighters, military, chiefs. It's not just the costume, y'all. It's the power association with it. I'm gonna let that one sink in. Hair, hands, and even armpits, y'all. Don't knock it till you've had someone look at your elbow creases like it's gold. I'm just saying. I'm gonna leave it there though. Fetishes can be playful or intense, but in relationships, they can become issues when one partner is ashamed of their fetish and hides it, or when the fetish becomes the only way they can feel aroused and it overrides emotional connection. In therapy, we don't pathologize fetishes. We explore the origin, the emotional link, and whether it's a tool for connection or a crutch for avoidance. Let's talk about role playing, can we? And I don't mean Dungeons and Dragons, unless you're into that too. Role playing in the bedroom means creating characters or scenarios that allow couples to escape routine and explore power, fantasy, and taboo safely. So, can I share some of those popular scenarios with you? Again, teacher-student. This is about power dynamics and forbidden themes. Boss and secretary. Now we're talking about workplace tension turned into pleasure. Strangers at a bar. We're talking about anonymous and excitement. Cop and criminal. We're talking about authority and submission here. And for those of you that like to get into the alien human role, yep, I said it. People are out here getting abducted in the sheets. That's what that means. Now, before you judge, remember, role-playing isn't about disrespect or acting out. It's often a deeply creative way couples process curiosity, powerlessness, and the desire to be seen in a different way. And let's be honest, sometimes pretending to be someone else helps us finally say what we're too afraid to say as ourselves. Can I give y'all a quote from a client that might bring this home for y'all? When we role play, it's the only time my husband compliments me without it sounding like routine. It makes me feel like he sees me again. That right there, that's emotional hunger dressed up in a costume, y'all. Okay. Now we're getting into the controversial waters, and we're talking about swinging. Yep. I know some of y'all rolled your eyes and clutched your pearls. Swinging is when couples consensually engage in sexual activities with other couples or individuals, which could be swapping partners for the night, attending swinger parties or resorts. Yes, they do exist, y'all. And hello, hedonism. Okay. And threesomes, group sex, or voyeurism. These exist. Swinging isn't new. It's been around for decades and centuries, y'all. But what's changed is how openly it's being discussed. And I know some of y'all asking me, why do couples swing? Well, it's to explore sexual variety, to reignite their own connection through watching each other, and to overcome boredom or desire and balance. But swinging can also destroy a relationship if it's used to avoid deep issues. One partner agrees out of fear of losing the other, and boundaries aren't clear, and jealousy begins to creep in. According to research by Dr. Curtis Bergstrand, about 4% of American couples identify as swingers, and 60% report improved communication and sexual satisfaction. But when it backfires hard. Because let me tell you, what sounds exciting in a fantasy can get real messy in reality, especially when feelings enter the group chat. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, can I give y'all another piece of this? Polyamory. Polyamory is the practice of engaging in multiple consensual romantic or sexual relationships at the same time, with everyone being in the know. Not sneaking, not cheating, it's structured openness. There are all kinds of poly relationships, such as hierarchy. You have a primary partner and a secondary one, or ones. There's the non-hierarchical, where everyone is equal. There's the kitchen table poly. Everyone gets along like a big blended family. And the don't ask, don't tell, which are some partners don't want the details when you are with someone else. Let me say this clearly. Polyamory is not for people trying to escape emotional responsibility. It's not a license to cheat. It's not a free pass. Are we clear? It's a system that requires radical honesty, time management, deep emotional maturity, and consistent check-ins. So if you can't get down with that, I would not be placing myself or my partner in that position. All right. True story here, y'all. 2 queer women tried polyamory. One was bi and wanted to explore. The other agreed, but later admitted it made her feel disposable. They didn't break up because of jealousy. They broke up because they didn't feel safe enough to be vulnerable with the hard stuff. All right, can I give y'all a quote from a book called More Than Two? That should tell y'all. Loving more than one person doesn't mean loving anyone less. It means learning to love differently with awareness, consent, and care. Whew. That was a lot, but necessary, right? Because too often we hear kink and think of porn, We hear fetish and think something's broken. We hear poly and think someone's greedy. But really, all of these are just languages of love and desire. And just like any language, they need fluency, honesty, and communication. Okay, let's get into the meat and marrow of this whole thing, shall we? Because look, I know everybody loves the spicy stuff. The leather, the spanking, the yes daddy moments, but can we talk about what's really going on beneath all of that? See, kink isn't just about what we do with our bodies, it's about what we feel in our souls. That's why some people can't enjoy it unless they trust their partner like their life depends on it, and others use it as a wall to keep intimacy out. So let's unpack this. Why are people so drawn to giving up control or taking it in the bedroom? Why is it that a whip can feel more intimate than a kiss? Why do some of us crave being held down while others crave being completely free? So let's talk about control. Some people crave control in their lives. Others spend every waking moment being controlled. Whether you're a boss all day, a mama trying to keep the household afloat, or a man who's been told never to cry, sex might be the only place where you get to let go or finally take the lead. And that's where kink shows up. A dominant may crave control in bed because they feel powerless in life. A submissive may crave surrender because they've had to be strong for too long. Some might like pain because it makes the emotional numbness go away. And others seek structure, such as rules, punishments, rituals, because it gives them emotional safety in a chaotic world. Let's pause right there for a second, shall we? And let that sink in. But while we do, according to Dr. Meg John Barker, a psychologist and co-author of Rewriting the Rules, kink can actually be a way to process trauma. Because in a safe, consensual environment, people recreate power imbalances and take back control over them. It's like this. In trauma, control is taken. In kink, it's given, and that makes all the difference. Short story. Let me tell you about a client. We're going to call her Kayla. Kayla was a single mom, strong, smart, handled everything and everyone, but she told me she had this thing. She liked to be tied down during sex. Fully restrained, gagged, no movement, no words. And at first, she felt ashamed of that. "What's wrong with me?" she asked me. But as we worked through her therapy, we discovered something deeper. The bedroom was the only place in her life where she didn't have to perform, didn't have to fix everything, didn't have to hold it all together. Being restrained wasn't about pain or punishment. It was about permission. Permission to rest, to be still, to let someone else hold the weight for once. Y'all, the tears she cried during that session weren't about sex. They were about freedom. Now, let's flip it. Because y'all know I like to be controversial, right? Some people chase kink not for emotional depth, but for the high of novelty. And listen, no judgment. Humans love newness. We love trying things. But when you're constantly chasing the next kink, the next partner, the next toy, the next role play, you might not be searching for a connection. You might be running from it. It's like using fireworks to distract from the fact that the house is on fire. Did y'all catch that? Okay. Now here's the test. After the scene, after the orgasm, after the high, do you feel closer to your partner? Or do you feel more alone? I'm going to let that one sink in and let y'all answer that one. Well, I do. because I just feel inclined to give y'all a short little poem here. And I'm going to do that. You call boundaries and rope. Wrap me gently in what I fear, and I will tell you where it hurts. Not with words, but with trembling. Not with logic, but with breath. If you bind my hands, hold my trust. If you strike my skin and kiss the chaos, I am not broken for needing this. I am breaking when I pretend I don't. That's kink, baby. It's not about pain. It's about presence. It's not about power. It's about permission. It's not about taboo. It's about truth. Finger snaps, y'all. So let's talk about something that even the most sexual woke folks forget. Aftercare. Aftercare is what happens after a kink scene. And it's non-negotiable if you're doing any type of BDSM, emotional role-playing, power exchange, or intense play. And I'm going to tell y'all what it looks like. It looks like holding your partner, checking in emotionally, saying thank you or affirming them, getting water, snacks, cuddles, a warm blanket, or simply being present without judgment. And why does this matter? Because kink can take you to some deep emotional places, and aftercare is the way back. I always tell couples this: if you're going to take someone into emotional depths, you better know how to pull them back up. Don't be out here breaking hearts with ropes and forgetting the emotional CPR. Okay. So we also need to talk about trauma here, because many people, especially Black and brown folks, LGBTQ plus folks, and women, carry wounds related to control, shame, and the body. And sometimes kink reopens those wounds or helps them heal. It all depends on the intention, the safety, and the honesty involved. Someone who was sexually assaulted may find reclaiming control in a kink scene deeply healing, or it may re-traumatize them. That's why kink should always include safe words, pre-scene negotiation, emotional check-ins, and trauma-informed awareness. Y'all out here using handcuffs, make sure you know your partner's emotional history too, not just their favorite safe word, okay? Can I share a quote from a client? This client expressed to me, "I never realized how deeply I craved being seen until someone knelt for me. Not in submission, but in reverence." Let that sink in. Sometimes the kink isn't about sex. It's about being witnessed fully for once in your damn life. Yes, I said it. So, where does that leave us with this truth? I promise you. Kink can be a tool for emotional honesty or a mask for emotional emptiness. And the only way to know which one it is to get radically honest with yourself, with your partner, and with what you're really trying to feel when the lights go off. All right, stick with me, y'all. I got some more for you. So, we've talked about what kink is, what it isn't, and the emotional stuff beneath the surface. But let's talk about something that makes a lot of couples reach for the kinky drawer in the first place. Maybe if we spice things up, we'll feel connected again. You know what I'm talking about, right? You've been in the relationship long enough that the passion's gone on sabbatical. The spark's flickering, and suddenly someone's bringing home a leather mask like, let's give this a try. But here's the $1,000,000 question though. Can kink actually fix a relationship that's falling apart? Well, that's what y'all got me to break it down to you for. So let's break it down. A 2016 study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior found that couples who introduce consensual kink or new sexual practices report a temporary spike in sexual satisfaction. Notice that word, y'all. Temporary. Because the novelty effect is real. Trying something new can increase dopamine, create feelings of excitement and distract from underlying tension. But here's the flip side. If your relationship lacks emotional intimacy, trust, or communication, kink may actually amplify the cracks instead of sealing them. Think of it like this. Kink is fire. If your relationship is already built on kindling, it'll either warm you or burn it all down. Let me introduce you to another couple I used to work with. We're going to call them Derek and Latasha, who were married for 8 years, 2 kids, busy jobs, classic situation. Love was still there, but the sex wasn't. So they went to a swingers event. Latasha was nervous but open. Derek was excited. They talked, they planned, they set roles. It was supposed to be one night, but one night turned into 3. Then Derek started texting one of the women from the event behind Natasha's back. When they came into therapy, it wasn't about the sex. It was about the emotional betrayal, the lack of follow-up, the failure to communicate real needs, and the brokenness of the boundaries. And here's the kicker. Derek later admitted he didn't really want to swing. He just didn't know how to tell his wife he missed being wanted by someone. And Latasha, she agreed to it because she was scared he'd leave if she didn't. Neither of them was honest. They brought kink into a broken foundation and expected it to hold the weight of things they weren't willing to say. That swinging didn't just snap in the bedroom. It snapped their trust. Okay, let me make this plain. Kink can help when you already have strong communication. You're both curious and open, not desperate. You want to deepen intimacy, not distract from the lack of it. And you're using kink as a tool for connection, not escape. And trust me, the red flags of kink, where kink can hurt, is when one partner uses it to avoid vulnerability. It's introduced without proper consent, safety, or clarity. It's used as a last-ditch effort to avoid breakup conversations. It's used for permission to cheat. It replaces emotional work with physical novelty. And I want y'all to remember, a new sex toy can't fix old trust wounds. I'm going to leave that one right there. I tend to tell all of my couples this before they introduce kink or anything non-traditional into the relationship. You need to have 3 honest conversations. And here are your 3 honest conversations. 1, the fantasy talk. What are you truly curious about? What turns you on and why? Is this rooted in love, boredom, trauma, or something else? And I want them to think about that. The second conversation couples should have, the boundaries talk. What are your no-go zones? What are not negotiable for you? What's okay? What's not? And what would make you feel unsafe or disrespected? Y'all, this conversation is like the key, I promise you. Because the minute boundaries are broken, all things fall apart. So it's important for couples to have these conversations. And the last conversation, the aftermath talk. How will we check in after? What if one of us doesn't like it? What's the plan if it triggers unexpected emotions? Because it can happen, y'all. I've had many couples who come to me and said that they were all in, but then saw their partner engage with someone else, and it was like, oh, all the feels. And it was like, absolutely not, when the other partner was enjoying it. Okay? But just because y'all had bad sex. So I want y'all to know, bad sex won't kill a relationship, but bad communication about sex, well, that will put your love 6 feet under. Promise you. Can I share another story with y'all? So I had a client, we're going to call her Michelle, who tried everything to save her marriage. When emotional talks didn't work, she suggested BDSM. Her husband agreed, and they tried light bondage. She felt emotionally exposed and expected him to be present, connected, and attentive. He treated it like a checklist, though. tied her up, spanked her, finished, then rolled over and scrolled TikTok, y'all. It wasn't the rope that broke her heart. It was the fact that she felt used instead of seen. Like, kink became a performance, not a practice of connection. Her safe word wasn't pineapple either. It was, I'm done. Let that sink in. So no, kink can't fix a dying relationship, but it can reveal what's really going on underneath. Here's the truth most people don't want to admit though. Sometimes we reach for kinky sex because it's easier to act wild than it is to speak honestly. Sometimes tying your partner up feels safer than telling them, I don't feel loved by you anymore. Sometimes the fantasy is easier than the fight to reconnect. But here's the kicker. If you use kink to run from the problem will find you in bed, handcuffs and all. Trust me. Let's make this practical. Tonight, I want you and your partner to answer these questions honestly, gently, and without judgment. What do I truly desire that I've been too afraid to say out loud? Am I curious about kink, or am I scared to confront the boredom? If our sex life could talk, what would it say about the state of our relationship? And what's a non-sexual way we could reconnect this week? Don't wait until the bedroom feels like a battlefield. Talk now, love louder, touch deeper, and trust bigger. All right, y'all, take a deep breath. I know that was heavy, but it was honest. And let's get into a little bit more here, shall we? Okay, now, before y'all clutch your pearls or start sliding into somebody else's DMs prematurely, let's sit with this question for a moment. Is opening your relationship a brave step toward more love? Or is it a slick way to avoid facing your own emotional intimacy issue? Because, baby, let me tell you, everybody and their cousin is talking about being open these days. Poly this, ethical that. We don't do labels. We're fluid. We're just vibing. But let's break it down. Polyamory is not just about sleeping with who you want. It's about loving multiple people with clarity, care, and consent. And open relationships, they are not hall passes for when you get bored. Let's get into it without the TikTok generalizations and toxic Twitter threads. We're getting deep here, people. Polyamory literally means many loves. It's a type of consensual non-monogamy where people have romantic and or sexual relationships with more than one person, and everyone involved knows about it. All right. So, your different types of polyamory relationships, and I'm going to remind you all again what they are. The hierarchical polyamory, where you have a primary partner and the other relationships come secondary. Your non-hierarchical poly, all relationships are equal in emotional value. Your solo poly, you're poly but not interested in traditional partnerships, just connected, committed love without cohabitation. And your kitchen table poly, everyone in your poly circle knows each other and can have dinner together without drama. And of course, open relationships, which may include casual sexual relationships outside the main partnership without necessarily being romantically involved. But here's the gag. This takes serious emotional maturity. I'm going to let that one sink in. Not, we're just freaky. Not, let's try this because our sex life is dead. Polyamory ain't for people who don't know how to communicate in a monogamous setup. I know some of y'all out here that rolled your eyes at me and said, no, she didn't. But some of y'all over here clapping harder than you need to because you know it's true. And you probably been through it. You probably know someone that's in it. All the above. But can I share a story to bring this home a little bit? Let's talk about Zari and Devin. That's what we're going to call this couple. A queer Black couple who came to therapy after Devin proposed polyamory. Now, Zaire said they were open to trying it, but they later admitted they were just scared of losing Devin. They agreed out of fear, not excitement. We're going to fast forward 6 months because Devin has 2 other partners. Zaire, still trying to find their footing. They weren't jealous of the sex. They were jealous of the ease. Devin seemed to give those other people softness, care, energy, things Zaire hadn't seen in a long time. When Zaire finally said, "I thought I was enough for you," the entire room got quiet. And Devin said something powerful. "You are enough, but I've learned my heart has room for more." Y'all, that kind of love is tender. But if both people aren't ready, it becomes resentment dressed as liberation. Y'all with me? Okay. Let me bust a myth real quick, though. People assume that poly folks don't get jealous. But the truth is, they do. They've just learned to handle jealousy differently. They lean into communication, transparency, and reassurance. They say things like, "Hey, I felt insecure when I saw you out with your other partner. Can we reschedule quality time just for us? And I need to process something before I can support you with your other connection." In polyamory, emotional regulation is a survival kit. It's a skill, an actual survival skill. You have to know your attachment style, your insecurities, and how to separate your worth from someone else's schedule. All right. Let's talk about what many people won't hear, though. The shame of wanting more, especially in BIPOC, religious, or conservative communities. You might feel like you're betraying your faith, like you're disrespecting family traditions, and like you're too much or not enough. And if you're LGBTQ+, you might already be carrying the weight of rejection, so the idea of being even more different feels scary. Let me say this with my whole chest, y'all. Your desires are not shameful. Your curiosity is not a sin. But also, don't mistake rebellion for healing. Sometimes we're not really exploring polyamory. We're just trying to get away from the expectations that crushed us. Be honest with yourself about where it's coming from. You deserve it, and so does your partner. Or partners, I should say. Can I share another story with y'all? We're going to call this couple Jasmine and Eli. A married couple in their late 30s who tried opening their relationship. But they had rules. No sleepovers, no mutual friends, no falling in love. Want to know which one they broke? No falling in love. Jasmine fell for someone. Deeply, softly. She didn't mean to, but it happened. And suddenly, Eli wasn't just sharing her body. He was sharing her morning texts, her laughter, her emotional labor. He felt like a ghost in his own marriage. And Jasmine? She felt guilty, but also more alive than she had in years. They weren't ready. They hadn't done the emotional prep work. No therapist, no relationship coach, no structure, no nothing, just vibes. That's how polyamory destroys, not because it's wrong, but because we lie to ourselves about being ready. Let me give y'all the red flags and green flags on this. So, polyamory might work if you both have strong communication skills, there's deep emotional honesty and no fear of tough conversations, you've unpacked your own triggers and insecurities, and you're not using it as a reaction to boredom or infidelity. However, polyamory might destroy your relationship if one person agrees just to keep the other around. You're emotionally unavailable and see poly as a loophole. Boundaries aren't honored or are constantly shifting to please people, and you're not willing to sit with jealousy, grief, or loneliness when they show up. And trust, they will show up. Here's a simple question that reveals a lot. Why do I want this? If the answer is to fix what's broken, to feel wanted again, and because I'm afraid to leave but too sad to stay, you may not want poly. You may want freedom from discomfort. And that's a whole different conversation. So I had this couple who said, we thought polyamory would give us more freedom, but it actually required more work than monogamy ever did. That part right there, that's the truth most folks won't tell you. Okay, I'm gonna let that sink in, because apparently polyamory is a lot of work, if y'all didn't catch that message. All right. So I want y'all to sit down, separately or together, and journal these prompts later on today. What does commitment mean to me? Am I poly because I truly believe in multiple loves, or am I scared of being deeply vulnerable with one? How do I handle jealousy? Can I name it without shame? And what kind of aftercare do I need when I feel replaced, forgotten, or less prioritized? Your heart needs clarity before it needs more company. I like that line, y'all. I might have to use that more often. So, can polyamory and open relationships deepen love? Well, if you ask me, I would say yes, but only if the foundation is solid. Because more lovers won't make up for a love that's not being seen. And an open relationship built on close communication, that's not love. That's avoidance with pretty language. All right, now, let's go ahead and open that drawer. You know the one. We'll try this later drawer. Hide it before your mama comes over drawer. Drawer with the batteries and the backup batteries, if you know what I'm saying. That's right. Here, talking about toys, fantasies, and those freaky furs that make you whisper, I can't believe we're doing this, and smile at the same time. But before you think I'm about to turn this podcast into an audiobook version of a spicy novel, pause. Because this segment is not just about the buzz, the wiggle, or the, ooh, what's this do moments. It's about how exploration in your sex life can either bring you closer together or quietly build resentment if y'all aren't on the same page. So let's break it down. Let's start with toys. Because baby, some of y'all treat vibrators like competition when they're really just collaborators. Did some of y'all catch that? No? Okay. Well, let me say it louder for the insecure folks in the back. A sex toy is not your replacement. It's your teammate, if you allow it to be. Sex toys can be used to enhance pleasure, not just get there faster, okay? To help folks who struggle with arousal or physical sensation, to provide stimulation that fingers or genitals alone may not, and to spice up foreplay, long-distance sex, or even solo play. A study by the Kinky Institute found that 53% of women and 45% of men in relationships use sex toys, and the majority reported increased satisfaction and intimacy with their partner after doing so. Now, let me tell you about it. I'm going to use this couple. We're going to call them Dion and Melody, who've been together for 5 years, came into therapy after feeling like they were drifting. They'd had a great connection in the beginning, but somewhere between parenting and corporate burnout, their sex life had flatlined. Melody brought a remote-controlled vibrator to a session. Not to use it, y'all, but to talk about it. She wanted to bring it into date night. Y'all should have seen the face on Dion. Dion was not feeling it. He said, "What do you need that for if I'm right here?" Well, turns out that wasn't about the toy. It was about his fear of being replaced, of not being enough. of feeling like the toy could do something he couldn't. Well, you know what we did, right? We worked on communication, not comparison, and learned that giving her pleasure didn't have to be a solo ego thing. It could be a team effort. And when they finally used the toy together, Dion said, "It was the first time I felt like I was watching her joy, not just trying to perform." That part, y'all. Listen, pleasure, especially when it's self-guided, can bring up insecurity, power issues, and control triggers. But in a healthy relationship, pleasure can be an invitation to learn, not a sign you're failing. Can I reframe that way of thinking for y'all and tell y'all what it sounds like? Your partner likes a toy. Ask what it feels like, and then learn. Learn how to use it. They fantasize about a scenario. Don't just shut the scenario down. Get curious. Get the details. Figure out how to do it. You're nervous. How about you say that? Because vulnerability is sexy too. The moment you stop trying to be the perfect lover and start trying to be a present partner, the sex shifts. Trust me. Now, let's talk about fantasies, can we? Because, baby, your brain is the biggest sex organ you got. Some of y'all don't even know it. Fantasies aren't just about wild sex. They can be desires to feel powerful or submissive, scenarios of being wanted, chased, praised, or even worshipped, moments where we're someone else entirely, just for a little while. But here's the trick. Most fantasies aren't about the act. They're about the emotion underneath. You dream about being seduced in public. Maybe you want to feel desired again. You think about being dominated. Maybe you're craving surrender. You want a stranger scenario. Maybe you're missing that spark of mystery in your long-term relationship. Fantasies are emotional thermometers. They tell us what we're yearning for, whether it's safety, thrill, affection, or escape. Let me say this clearly. Exploration should never feel like pressure. If your partner brings up a toy or a fantasy and you shut down, that's okay. You have the right to say no. But if you bring something up and your partner calls you nasty, weird, or disgusting, that's not okay either. Shaming someone for their fantasy creates silence, not safety. Consent, curiosity, and compassion are the holy trinity of healthy kink exploration. Here's a little example of what real, emotionally safe fantasy conversation might sound like. I want to use a couple, we will call them Jada and Andre for this. So Jada says, "I had a fantasy the other night that surprised me. I imagined you tying me up, not in a scary way, but a protective way. It made me feel really safe." And Andre responds by saying, "Wow, I never done that before, but I'd be open to learning what about it felt good." Jada told him the fact that I didn't have to think. I could just let go. And Andre replied by saying, "Let's talk more about it. Maybe we can read about it together before we try." See that? That's grown, sexy, emotionally present conversations. Why? Because Andre allowed her to express herself, didn't reject her, and was open to learning more about it. Sometimes that's all that's needed. Trying something new with your partner should feel like an adventure, not a test. If this is your first time, make a checklist of your green, yellow, and red lights. Create a safe word even if it's not BDSM, something that means pause without hurting feelings. Schedule time for aftercare, even if it's just cuddles and conversation. Laugh. Seriously, kink can be awkward. That's part of the intimacy. And please, don't let porn be your teacher. Let communication be your compass. So I want y'all tonight, grab a notebook or a notepad or an app and answer these. What's one fantasy I've never told anyone? What emotion is at the center of that fantasy? Power, safety, play, escape, or connection? What am I afraid of that would happen if I shared it with my partner? Remember, your deepest desires deserve your gentlest care. So let's bring it all together. Sex toys are not your enemy. Fantasies are not your shame. Trying something new, that's not about being freaky. That's about being free. And the truth is, every freaky first starts with the first time you say, hey, can we talk about something? All right. We've talked about the toys, the ropes, the fantasies, the feelings. We've been through a lot, right? But now let's get serious for a moment, can we? Because here's the truth. Not everything kinky is healthy. And just because something turns you on doesn't mean it's emotionally aligned, mutually safe, or grounded in consensual love. Let's talk about what's okay, what's a caution sign, and what's a straight up danger zone when you're bringing non-traditional sex into your relationship. Because, honey, pleasure should never come at the cost of safety. Let's start with the warning signs. These are behaviors or patterns that can lead to resentment, trauma, or emotional damage, even if it's wrapped in leather or lingerie. First one, pressure over consent. If one partner keeps pushing to try something the other isn't comfortable with, or guilt trips them for saying no, that's not exploration. That's coercion. Real example, you do it if you really loved me. No, nope. Full stop. Love doesn't manipulate, it respects boundaries. 2, disrespecting safe words or limits. If any type of kink play, especially BDSM, if someone ignores or mocks the agreed upon safe word, that's dangerous. That's not play. That's assault. So, here's the tip. Create multiple levels of safe words. Green equals keep going. Yellow equals slow down. Red equals stop immediately. Practice using them before things get heated. 3, withholding aftercare. If someone initiates or encourages intense scenes but refuses to provide aftercare or mocks the emotional needs that follow, it's not healthy. Emotional abandonment after sex is just as painful as physical harm doing it. Fetishizing without care. Yes, that is a word. If your identity, race, gender, orientation, size, doesn't matter, is being fetishized without your consent or emotional acknowledgement, that's dehumanizing. Let's be clear. Example of this, if for some of y'all that don't know, could sound like this. I've always wanted to try a black girl. It's not a compliment. It's a colonizer fantasy. Let's be honest. I know some of y'all are like, ooh, no, she didn't. Listen, I'm here to tell the truth, y'all. With a little controversy. And 5, kink becoming a distraction from real problems. If you or your partner is only engaged during sex, but emotionally unavailable the rest of the time, that's not a kink problem. That's an emotional accountability problem. We being clear today. I'm going to give y'all some yellow flags, the things that require a pause in conversation, because not all concerns are immediate red flags. Some are opportunities, right, to include a pause, process, and to communicate. All right. 1, different curiosity levels. One partner is all in, the other is unsure. And that's okay, as long as it's talked about. The key is pacing. Don't rush, go slow, and explore together. 2, fantasy versus reality confusion. Someone is excited about fantasy until it becomes real. If it causes emotional discomfort or regret, hit the pause button. Check in, and don't bulldoze your partner's boundaries. Can I give you a little insight? The brain responds differently to fantasy than reality. A fantasy of a threesome might feel sexy, but in reality, it could trigger abandonment, body image issues, or jealousy. Okay, follow me. And your last one. No post-scene communication. You don't need a therapist every time you have sex. But if you're trying something new, debriefing is a love language. Ask each other, what did you like? What surprised you? Was anything uncomfortable? And what would you change next time? That's intimacy, people, in action. And of course, I want to give y'all your green lights. When kink is rooted in connection, because we want to celebrate the good stuff, right? Because these are signs your exploration is grounded, consensual, and love aligned. First one, mutual curiosity, not just one-sided fantasy. Where you're both engaged, asking questions, doing research, and setting the mood, not just one person dictating the experience. 2, ongoing communication before, during, after. You talk about scenes before they happen. You check in during, you cuddle or decompress afterwards. That's real love, y'all, not just real sex. No shame zones. You're both allowed to say no, yes, maybe later, or I changed my mind without fear of judgment. That emotional safety, it makes the physical stuff 10 times better. And 4, emotional closeness deepens, not disappears. Because after kink play, do you feel more seen, more connected, more at peace? Well, then baby, that's not freaky. That's faithful intimacy in action. I want to give you a quote from book The Ethical Slut. Sex is not just about bodies. It's about trust, joy, risk, healing, learning, and connection. Let that marinate. Because sometimes the kinkiest thing you can do is be honest about what you're feeling. Short story. I'm going to tell you about Nico and Jordan, a non-binary couple who were exploring dominance and submission. Jordan was nervous about hurting Nico, even with consent. Nico assured them it was okay, but during one intense scene, something shifted. Nico became overwhelmed and used their safe word. Jordan stopped everything, sat on the floor, held Nico's hand, looked them in the eyes, and whispered, "You are safe. I see you. I've got you." That moment was more intimate than any orgasm, y'all, because it wasn't about the impact of the paddle. It was about the intimacy of being heard and held. That's what healthy kink looks like. So I want y'all to ask yourselves and each other these questions. Do we feel emotionally closer after sex? Are we equally excited about exploring something new? Is there space for one of us to change our mind without backlash? And are we using kink to deepen our relationship, not distract from the parts we're afraid to talk about? If the answers are yes, you're not just kinky, you're connected. Whew. Let's take a collective breath here, right? Because I know this topic might be stirring up some feelings for sure, and that's okay. But we're here to get honest. Being kinky doesn't mean you're broken. Being vanilla doesn't mean you're boring. But being unwilling to communicate, that's where the real damage starts. So, get into that part of things for you. Okay, because we've talked the talk. Now let's walk it. Because look, kink without communication is chaos. And intimacy without trust, that's just performance. If you're going to bring kink into your relationship, or if it's already there and you want to build a stronger foundation, then this part of the segment right here is for you. Whether you're curious, kinky, confused, or somewhere between, I've got you. Let's build your emotional and physical safety kit together. The first step to exploring kink with your partner is knowing how to talk about it without shame. So here's a simple script framework I use with couples in session. It's called the before, during, and after method. This script helps you open the door to kink without overwhelming or scaring your partner. Try this. Hey, there's something I've been curious about and I want to bring it up. Not because I'm unhappy with you, but because I trust you. Can we talk about a fantasy I've been thinking about? Then pause. If they're open, continue by saying, I read about, and then you insert what you read, and it made me feel, and this is where I want you to insert your emotion with a real emotion word, not the okay, good, all right. I'm not saying I need to try it tomorrow, but I'd love to talk about what that might look like for us. Boom, right there, y'all. Y'all missed it. No pressure, just curiosity, no shame, and just trust. I'm gonna let that sink in. You need to know how to talk during play, especially if it's something new, intense, or emotional. Here's a breakdown of a safe word system. Green, everything feels good, keep going. Yellow, I'm okay, but slow down and check in. And red, stop immediately. You can also use gestures or signals if someone's gagged, restrained, or can't speak, like holding a soft item and dropping it if things get too much. And listen, if someone says red, the only acceptable response is immediate, caring stop. No negotiation, no ego. Here's a tip. Check in mid-scene by simply asking, how's this feeling? Or are you still with me? Aftercare is where the emotional glue forms. It's the follow-up, the love, the checking in that happens after the physical part is over. Some people need cuddles, reassurance, affirmations, water, snacks, warm blanket, silence, and presence, or even a 5-minute cry. Yes, emotional release is real. And then ask your partner, how do you feel physically? How do you feel emotionally? Was there anything that felt off or surprising? What did you love the most? And is there anything we should adjust next time? That's intimacy. That's care. That's love beyond the performance. So I want my couples to do an exercise together if you can. It's the yes, no, and maybe list. Create 3 columns. The one column is your yes, I'm into this or open to trying it. Your middle column is your maybe column, where it's the space to say I'm unsure or I need more information. And then the third column is your no. Your hard limits, not interested, you're absolutely not. And include topics like light bondage, dominant submission, role play, public play, toys, spanking, voyeurism, dirty talk, threesomes, polyamory, and aftercare needs. Then sit down and compare. Then laugh. Be surprised. Ask follow-up questions. Normalize the honesty. You might be shocked how many no's turn into maybes later, once the emotional trust is built. So, before you bring kink into the bedroom, ask, what makes you feel safe with me? When do you feel most emotionally connected to me? What are things I've done that made you feel secure even when you were scared? And if we were to try something new, what would help you feel emotionally grounded afterward? Because here's the truth. Kink doesn't matter if emotional safety isn't prioritized. So after your next scene, each of you journal for 10 minutes using this prompt. What emotions did I experience during that? What did I learn about myself and my partner? Then share, if you're comfortable. This creates space for reflection and evolution, not just arousal. And I'm going to give y'all a bonus tool here. We're going to call it the kink calendar, especially if you want to keep it light but intentional. Create a monthly kink calendar together with little exploration ideas like week 1, read one article or watch a documentary together like bonding or kink. Week 2, Pick one fantasy to talk about. Week 3, try a new toy or setting. Week 4, do a full aftercare night. No sex, just emotional intimacy. Make it fun, make it sexy, and definitely make it yours. Here's what I want you to remember. The sexiest thing about kink isn't the ropes, it's the respect. The love, the vulnerability of saying, "This is what I want. Will you meet me there?" If you've ever felt too scared to ask for more, know that you are not alone. If you've ever judged your own desires, this is your permission slip to get curious. And if you and your partner are walking into this new space together, then baby, that's the wine and the mess. All right, my beautiful couples and those dating. We've been laughing, learning, and getting a little turned on. Don't lie. I know some of y'all already added a few things to the Amazon cart while listening to this episode. But this segment right here, it's not about excitement. It's about examination. Because yes, kink can deepen love. But if we're not careful, kink can become a performance, a mask, a beautiful distraction from the intimacy you're too scared to face. So can we talk about it? Some people explore kink from a place of wholeness. You know, the "I love you, I trust you, I'm ready to explore this with you." Others, they walk into kink from a place of escape that sounds like, "If I don't try something new, they'll lose interest. I can't stand to talk about how disconnected we are, so I'll just put on a costume. I don't feel desired, but maybe if I let them do this, they'll stay." Y'all, this is not kinky. That's codependency and lingerie. In sessions, I always ask one core question before couples try something new sexually. Is this coming from desire or from fear? Desire says, "I want to feel closer to you. I want us to play together. I trust you with all of me." Fear says, "I'm scared you'll leave. I don't know how else to keep your attention. And I'm afraid if I say no, you'll think I'm boring." Kink should never be a distraction from emotional truth. It should be an expression of it. I'm going to give y'all a short story here of a couple. We're going to call them Tamara and Chris, who've been married for 11 years. On paper, everything looked good. The house, the kids, matching robes. But when they came into relationship coaching, Chris was the one who booked it. He said, "I don't feel like my wife loves me anymore, but she's more open in the bedroom than ever." Tamar had recently started initiating more intense sex, spanking, choking, calling him names during scenes. At first, he loved it, but he then noticed something. She never made eye contact. She always rushed after sex, showered, got dressed, and left the room. She cried once after a scene, said it was just hormones. But in our coaching session, we found the root. Tamar had grown up in a house where emotional needs were punished, where love had to be earned, where affection was a currency. Kink wasn't just an erotic outlet for her. It was the only language she felt allowed to use to ask for closeness. She said, "I don't know how to say I want to be held, so I say hurt me instead." Y'all, that wasn't pleasure. That was pain repackaged. Let's get real. For a lot of us, especially Black and brown folks, LGBTQ plus folks, trauma survivors, our first introduction to power was through pain. So sometimes we confuse control with love. Sometimes we mistake intensity for intimacy. And when we don't have the tools to communicate, we reach for a sensation to speak for us. But that backfires when we can't feel safe without stimulation. We start needing pain to feel present, and we can't enjoy connection unless it's charged, risky, or extreme. This is called repetition compulsion. when we recreate emotional patterns in hopes of finding a new outcome. It's not kink, people. It's unhealed trauma seeking a different ending. Look, I'm all for spice. Try the swing, the blindfold, the vibrating ring. Live your truth. But if y'all ain't talking about the emotional dry spell before hopping on the sex swing, that spice is going to expose your wounds and heal them. And not heal them. You can't sprinkle glitter on a fracture and call it fixed, people. All right, follow me now. If you're exploring kink but avoiding these combos, pause. Then ask your partner, do you feel emotionally safe with me? Do we talk outside of sex about our needs? What are we afraid to bring up in this relationship? And then, are we using play to bond or to avoid the silence? Remember, good sex can't fix bad communication. It can only distract from it for so long, I promise you. All right, can I give y'all a short quote from Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski? Pleasure is the measure, but it only heals when the nervous system is in safety, not survival. I need y'all to hear that in the back. If you're using kink while emotionally disconnected, your body might respond, but your soul won't heal. It'll just get better at pretending. Come on, y'all. I'm telling the truth today. And while I'm telling the truth, I want you to grab a pen or your notes app again and ask yourself, what's the emotional scene I'm too scared to act out? What would I say or ask for if I wasn't afraid of being judged? And if I could speak without shame, what would I need during sex? Now, are you brave enough to share that with your partner? I hope so. Because that's the real freaky stuff, y'all. Telling the truth. Because we telling the truth up in here today. And let's keep it clear. If any of these sound like you, it might be time to slow down. I'm just saying. You feel numb without intense stimulation. You use kink as the only way to feel wanted. You feel emotionally distant after sex. You initiate scenes to avoid talking about real problems. You feel anxious if sex doesn't involve kink. Don't shame yourself and don't panic. Just know that this is your inner self waving a flag, asking you to slow down and look inward. Kink should never be your shield. It should be your spotlight. It should reveal where your love lives, where your tenderness hides, where your body and your soul finally agrees to show up at the same time. So if you've been using kink as a band-aid, this is your invitation to check in. Not to stop playing, but to start healing while you play. Because it's not the cuffs, the ropes, or the roles that destroy relationships. It's the unspoken emotions we keep burying under orgasms. All right, now, after everything we've unpacked, yes, I'm talking about all the tools, the red flags, the distractions, the emotional landmines, you might be wondering, can kink actually bring us closer? Can we tie each other up and still be fully seen? And can submission be holy? Can dominance be loving? You already know my answer, right? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Because when done right, with communication, intention, and care, kink doesn't just deepen the sex, it deepens the connection. So let's talk about it. Let's reclaim this word, submission, shall we? For some folks, that word brings up images of control, abuse, or passivity. But in the world of healing kink, submission isn't about weakness. It's about trust so deep you can finally let go. To submit means I trust you to see me. I trust you to hold me. And I trust you to listen when I say no. Y'all, some of us haven't felt that kind of trust outside the bedroom, let alone inside it. And for the dominant, the one holding the power, true dominance means I will never harm you. I will honor your limits and I will guide you safely. That ain't role playing, people. That's radical respect. I'm going to give y'all a short story. We're going to call this couple Tasia and Nico. So Tasia and Nico were engaged and kinky as hell, y'all. During premarital counseling, Nico revealed he wanted to give Tasia a collar as part of their private commitment ceremony. Not just any collar, people. It was custom made, elegant, with a tiny rose gold charm in the shape of a heart. Tasia was hesitant. Her church upbringing made her question it. But when she heard what it meant to Nico, she cried. I bet y'all wonder what Nico said to her, right? So Nico said, the collar isn't about owning you. It's about holding space for you to rest, to be adored, to be free inside structure. You lead the world all day. Let me carry you at night. So she said yes, not just to the ring, but to the submission she could finally trust. And y'all, they've never felt closer because their kink is rooted in care. Their play, built on prayer. Their bedroom, made into a sanctuary. Come on now, I'm going there today. So many of us, especially folks raised in religious or purity-based cultures, are taught to split ourselves in two. What does that look like? Be respectable during the day and a freak at night. Be holy at church, but hide your hunger at home. Be good or be sexual, but never both. But here's the truth. You don't have to choose between your sensuality and your spirituality. In fact, they can enhance each other. And what does that look like? The breath work and BDSM. That's meditation. The trust and rope suspension. That's surrender. The presence required in impact play. That's mindfulness. And the vulnerability of telling your fantasy. That's confession. Did I just bring that home for y'all? I hope I did. Because sex, when done in love and safety, is sacred. Kink, when practiced with care and honesty, is spiritual work. Come on now. I'm going to hit y'all with a poem. We're going to call it Submit to Love. Don't bind me to the bed. Bind me to your knowing. Don't strike me to silence. Strike me to awaken. Don't dominate my body. Dominate the fear I hide behind it. Submit to me as I submit to love. And let us be undone to become whole again. Let that sit in your spirit for a second, people. Here's the tea. Most long-term couples don't struggle because they stop having sex. They struggle because they stop having erotic intimacy. I know some of y'all was like, oh, no, she didn't. But yes, I did. And what's the difference? I'll tell you. Routine sex is, we're supposed to do this. It's Thursday. Let's get it over with. While erotic intimacy is, I want to know you again, touch you like you've changed since last week. I want to explore the parts of you I haven't met yet. Kink, when done right, creates intentional space for erotic intimacy. It asks, what do you desire today? What emotion lives behind your skin? And how can I love you here, not just in the story we've been repeating? Okay, I know that was deep, right? But can we go even deeper? Some people use kink, particularly role play, impact play, or caregiver dynamics to rewrite painful emotional scripts from childhood. Let's be clear. This is not about replacing therapy. But when someone says, hold me like I was never held, or tell me I'm safe when I can't say it myself, that's not a sex act. That's a healing moment. Dr. Tina Schreimer Sellers, author of Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, writes, erotic connection in safe relationships allows us to rewire shame, restore presence, and reclaim the body as holy. Did y'all catch that? Because I did. Kink can be holy. All right. So I want y'all to try this with your partners. Maybe not now, but maybe later. Light candles. Put on some soft music with no distractions. Then ask each other, what kind of touch feels like love to you? What words make you melt? And what's one scene you'd like to try where you feel spiritually seen, not just sexually satisfied? And write it down, not as a to-do list, but as a love map. Can we do that? Use this when planning your next scene. Let it guide the energy, not just the action. Can I give y'all a quick story? I know y'all want it, so I'm going to give it to y'all. We're going to call this couple Lena and Desmond, who've been married for 14 years. Lena was the daughter of a deacon, y'all. Desmond grew up in a Muslim household. Neither of them had space to talk about sex growing up, let alone kink. But after years of missionary and quiet orgasms, if any, they took a workshop on sensual spirituality. They learned about tantric kink, people. Yes, what is that? Blending BDSM rituals with breath work, prayer, and affirmations. They created a scene where Desmond blessed each of Lena's body parts out loud before blindfolding her, y'all. And what did he say? This is my wife's mind. May it be free. This is her mouth. May it speak without fear. This is her belly. May it hold power. And this is her sex. May it never shrink in shame again. Y'all, that woman cried through the whole scene. That's what they told me. And after she said, for the first time in my life, my body felt like church. Woo, girl, guy, sir, listen. We said amen. Listen, we don't judge here. So can kink deepen love? Well, definitely in that case, I'm going to say yes. Especially when it's built on truth, not fantasy. When it invites connection, not confusion. And when it becomes a mirror, not a mask. Because kink is not just about how you touch each other. It's about how you see each other. Not just lovers, but as people with sacred hunger, divine needs, and untamed tenderness. And in that space, even a flogger becomes a love letter. Even a collar becomes a prayer. Even the silence between scenes becomes a holy moment. Okay, so we made it here, y'all. My lovers, my newly dating couples, my long-term married couples. The final segment of what's probably one of the realest, most intimate, most grown folks episodes I've ever recorded. We've explored kink from every angle, the ropes, the rules, the roles, the pleasure, the pain, the poetry, because that's just what I do. But before I close, I want to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable. Not because it's scandalous or controversial, but because it's true. Kink is not what breaks most relationships. It's the silence that kills them. Let that breathe. Let that sink in. It's not the paddle. It's the fact that you haven't touched each other outside of sex in months. It's not the blindfold. It's the fact that you feel emotionally invisible and haven't said a word. It's not the safe word. It's the fact that you don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable. We spend so much time learning how to turn each other on, but not nearly enough time learning how to tell the truth. Can I give y'all another short story? I want to call this couple Elise and Carmelo. So, these two had what looked like the perfect relationship from the outside: trips, gifts, great sex, matching tattoos. They experimented with everything: bondage, role play, group scenes, exhibitionism. But during one session, Carmelo shut down completely, couldn't perform, pulled away, and he said he was just tired. Weeks later, Elise found out he'd been emotionally checked out for months, still showing up physically, but no longer feeling emotionally connected. And she said something I'll never forget. We tied each other up every weekend, but we never sat down and asked, "Are you still in this with me?" Y'all, the problem wasn't the kink. It was the lack of real conversation underneath the kink. They missed the mark there, right? So let's say them now. Can we? I want you to say, "I'm scared I'm losing you. I feel invisible. I want to try something new, not because I want to feel alive with you again, but because I want to feel alive with you again. I'm afraid I'm too much, and I'm afraid I'm not enough." I also want y'all to end up saying, "I want to feel desired. I miss your hands. I want to submit, but only if you're truly present with me. And I want to dominate, but only if you still see me as tender." Because when we stop performing, we start connecting. Most of the time, couples don't come to therapy because of sex. They come because the sex stopped meaning anything. They come because he won't look me in the eyes anymore. She agrees to everything but seems somewhere else in her head. And we're exploring kink, but I feel lonelier than ever. That's why we do this work, y'all, to get back to the real connection, not just the physical one. And I do this work, I promise y'all, not just for therapy, but yes, the relationship coaching part, because we got to get people to actually implement what they're learning. And relationship coaching can hold your hand walking through it, while therapy helps you unpack it. But let me take a minute and speak directly to the one listening who's been holding something in. Maybe it's a kink you're too ashamed to share. Maybe it's the hurt you feel when your partner zones out during sex. Maybe it's the fear if you really open up, they'll walk away. Here's what I want you to know: you are not too much. Your desires are not a burden. Your pain is not embarrassing. Your longing for more, that's not greedy. That's human. You deserve a love where you can say, "I want this, I fear this, and I hope for this." And be met there, not judged, not laughed at, but met. So I want you to ask yourself tonight, am I using kink to connect or to distract? Am I speaking my truth or just performing what I think they want? And when was the last time I asked, "How are you feeling about us?" That one question might change everything for your relationship. And to take you home, my final poem, we're going to call it "Get Back to the Heart." Don't just touch me, feel me. Don't just bind me, unravel me. Don't just dominate me, let me lovingly into myself. Don't just perform for me, be with me. Don't just swing with me, soften with me. Don't just explore me, see me. Don't just love the kink, love the heart it came from. Finger snaps, y'all. So here we are, friends and couples, lovers. You made it through a whole journey with me today. Through leather, lace, longing, and liberation. And if you've taken nothing else from this episode, let it be this: Your desires don't make you dirty. Your honesty makes you whole. There's no one right way to love, but there is a better way to communicate, to explore, to choose each other every single day, even when it's messy, especially when it's messy. So, to every couple out there navigating what it means to be turned on and tuned in, to be powerful and present, to be kinky and kind, let this be your reminder. You don't have to tie each other up to stay together. But if you do, make sure the knots are built with trust, truth, and tenderness. Because at the end of the day, the wildest ride isn't the swing, the rope, or the role play. It's the journey of choosing each other over and over again with open hearts and curious hands and minds. And with those hands, I want you to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hearts Wine from Harsh Distractions, so you can get some exclusive episodes and content. I want you to visit our website at www.aliciasdistractions.com for more resources and updates. I also want you to go purchase a copy of my poetry book, Distractions of the Heart, on Amazon. And follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Now, go love louder, touch deeper, speak braver, and never forget the freaky fades if the feelings fake. But real love, baby, that hits harder than any paddle ever could. Cheers.